Good morning, everybody. This is Lorraine Ball.
And Jennifer Denney.
And Jennifer, we have a guest this morning. I'm sorry. You're looking at well, because
just getting it out of the way. Yeah. There we go.
Well, but you invited him, so you were going to introduce him. But Devin, why don't you say hello and introduce yourself?
Howdy. Good morning. Thank you, Lorraine and Jennifer, for having me here. My name is Devin Littlefield. I'm managing partner at a digital marketing agency called MarkAdvantage. Advertising, SEO, the works. So yeah, it's great to be here and always love talking about all things SEO. So that's my forte. And I'm excited to talk about it.
Well, and Jennifer, I know you geek out on SEO and actually you were the one who introduced us to Devin. So why don't you kick off with one of the burning questions you had for him this morning?
Yeah, I mean, I know we're going to be talking about Google page experience, and I'll admit that I've been kind of avoiding it because I know parts of it involve things that I don't necessarily do, but I know it's important. So maybe start off with just explaining, like, what is this Google page experience update and why does it matter?
Sure. Well, there's a couple components to it. I think one of them is, and it's actually already starting to roll out now. Actually, let me back up first. So back in March of 2020, Google announced that they were going to be rolling out this thing called the Page Experience Update, which it was a little convoluted in terms of what that was including, but they talked about these three things called the core web vitals that would be introduced into the Google search algorithm. And those core web vitals are the largest contentful paint, your first input delay, and your cumulative layout shift. Those are three different components. They're all related to page experience. I can way nerd out in terms of what each of those mean and how to optimize for those, but for the sake of time and for what, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, for the sake of not driving people crazy and going into details, I'm going to spare you for that for now, but it's all related to your website experience, right? And what's interesting about this update is that it's the very first search algorithm update they've ever rolled out that's directly going to be looking at the responsiveness of your website, the behavior of, how people are interacting with it. It traditionally, up until this point, it's just been traditional optimization, right? Or trying to remove the black hat SEO tactics that people were taking for a little while once they figured out that they could just stuff a page with keywords and make it work, right? So this is now an evolution of now taking it a step beyond the mobile first indexing and going into how fast is your website? Like how user friendly is it? And these are the first three metrics that they're looking at and evaluating as part of it. So that's exactly what it is. It's starting to introduce those core web vitals as part of the ranking signals of all the other thousands of signals they already have.
Okay, so I'm a small business owner. This is my website. I'm completely overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah.
Are there a couple of tips, things that I need to absolutely be aware of to take advantage of the fact that Google is now evaluating my website on core web vitals?
Sure. I mean, I think the first thing that anybody should be doing is, if nothing else, getting Google Search Console up and running as part of your marketing tech stack, right? Knowledge is power. Having this completely free tool just running in the background on your website, analyzing it, is going to be able to just help bring clarity into what that is. They rolled out these core web vital reportings inside of this Google Search Console tool. Like I said, completely free, just a couple minutes to get up and running as part of your website. And that will just bring in a little bit of knowledge and help you understand. Because, and like all things Google, they try to make it as user-friendly as possible, right? You open up this little Core Web Vital tab, and it'll say how many URLs are good, how many need improvement, or how many are bad, right? And they do a good job of laying that out. So I think, frankly, that's the first step that I recommend for every business is, get Google Search Console installed on the site.
And you got to understand what Google thinks of your website. I understand there's lots of really good third-party tools, but if Google is telling you what they think, you should probably pay attention.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more.
It's funny. I had a client who was working with another agency on SEO. We were doing the web and a little bit of content marketing. And they kept bringing in their reports. Our tool says this. And I kept pulling up Google Search Console and going, yeah, but Google says this. And I liked the fact that there was good information that we could pull from that and say, okay, no, this is the right direction if you want Google. If you want to keep this other agency happy, go off and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, with search in general, right? It's Google, Bing, even Yahoo or DuckDuckGo, whichever platform or search engine you're looking at, they all are doing things a little bit differently. And obviously Google is still the very big player that you need to be really paying closely attention to. So in that regard, yeah, it's unfortunate sometimes that Google owns the data, right? Because they try to convolute it or make it simple and easy for people to understand. But it comes out as convoluted, or like they're trying to withhold information. So that's the only downside that I have with some of Google's reportings. But yes, Lorraine, I 100% agree. It's Google is, if this is what they think of you, that's going to be important, and you need to be paying attention to that.
Yeah, you talked about technology stack. Like, I look at some of these details and some of these things, like, honestly, you might need to blow up your website because you might not be able to fix some of these things with the technology stack you have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, some of the errors that can end up causing, I could dive into 10,000 different reasons why a website might be loading slowly, or, why you might be getting these shifting things on the screen, right? But ultimately, you may just need to rebuild the entire website. If your site takes 10 seconds to load per page, something's wrong, right? And it does need to be evaluated. And I don't know. I mean, it could come down to a new developer, new theme, new CMS or new hosting tool, right? Like it could be any number of factors. So it's unfortunate. It's fortunate and unfortunate. I think with all things Google, they're trying to really help push the market up into a new standard. They know that the standard is mobile first. It's fast, responsive. I mean, we also know that if a site takes longer than 3 seconds to load, there's a 70% chance somebody's going to drop off the website, right? So you need to have a responsive experience, and Google knows that, and they're trying to just get the whole industry up to a standard. And this is really. This is the start of pushing people. Yeah.
They're trying, but as a small business owner, you've got a lot of things going on. And so sometimes it's not always feasible. I think they set the bar really high, and I think you definitely need to pay attention to it. But I also just wonder, like, how long is it going to take? You really got to look at your own industry. Like, if your competitor is updating, then you probably need to too.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I tell people it's every 2 years you need to be really, if not completely facelifting, really getting in and deep diving on the core setup.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Devin, I cut you off. You were going to say something else.
No, I completely agree, and I think. Yeah, that's the hard part about web dev these days. It is evolving so fast, and the intersection between web dev and SEO is becoming ever so tightly integrated that you need to, even for small business owners, when looking at web dev companies, it's really important to see and understand not just aesthetically, can they make you a beautiful website, but now you need to be thinking about these things like speed, which never really was a part of the picture up until now. And by the way, I'll say this live here on the air. I think this is just a beginning for experience and speed related metrics. As we know at Google, they always evolve. And I think speed is just going to become far more important. So I think we will see other metrics start to get added in down the road to that are purely based off of speed and experience. So.
The challenge as, and we're a WordPress shop, and we've been WordPress exclusively, is WordPress is easy. It's easy for our customers to manage. It is not the fastest tool. And, when you have something like half of all the new websites being built are being built on WordPress, I see this real collision between their platform and Google, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I mean, certainly WordPress is still the largest, most heavily used content management system in the world at this point. I forget the percentage of market share, but it's huge, right? And I think there are a lot of shops, even Squarespace and Wix, that are trying to edge up there, right, and make it easy for the small business owners to go out and create their own websites and make them somewhat responsive and fast. But at the end of the day, WordPress is still king right now. I do see that there's some other cool technologies coming down the pike, like, headless WordPress installs that do make serving sites much faster. And I think that's really exciting to see that evolution coming. So that they're seeing the writing on the wall. They know speed is important, and they're trying to find ways to optimize or work around, particularly WordPress, I think, trying to figure out how they can make it more responsive and faster. But
I'm reminded of the WordPress coming out recently and saying that they are blocking Google's new tracking update of Flock. And so, and heads there.
Yeah.
But I know
it's a scary world out there.
4 other aspects of this page experience. And I think the other 4 are pretty well known, but you want to talk about those other 4 that are inside of there as well?
Well, I do know, I think particularly the one that has already been released as part of this rollout, and for everybody listening, the page experience update did technically start rolling out in June. This very first update, or one of the things that they did in the month of June, was taking away the need to have AMP in order to have a story be within the top search carousel or the story carousel, as it's called. AMP, for those of you who don't know, accelerated mobile pages, it's essentially a tool, or kind of a way of creating web pages that can load significantly faster. It strips out a lot of the unnecessary web code, and it's pretty much exclusively it was almost exclusively developed for publishers, right, or people that were creating newsworthy pieces of content. So they tried to get several years ago, they tried to get everybody on this bandwagon of put all of your posts on AMP, and then you'll show up in the news carousel. Well, now they've rolled that back as of, even as of today, right? Now it's, anybody that's producing good quality news that's relevant to the search, we're going to go ahead and put it inside of the news carousel, whether it's AMP enabled or not. So I do know that that's certainly a rollout that's already kind of taken place at this point. And that's honestly probably the other biggest component of this whole page experience update outside of those core web vitals.
Yeah. Well, I guess I was talking more about, things we've definitely heard before, like the mobile friendly, making sure GPS, making sure that, you don't have any security issues. And then I also think about the pop-ups that, they mention all of this within page experience, and all this stuff makes sense as far as what people want. So it's kind of like with AMP, like I was just like,
all right, so go back, because I want to hear, because I'm the content conversion, you're the SEO side, and I'm picking on you there because I know you do both as well. I like the pop-up, what's called the exit pop-up. You've spent some time on the page. I can see penalizing me if I get that pop-up in your way as soon as you get to the page. I hate those, but am I going to be at a disadvantage if I'm using exit pop-ups, or is the penalty really only for the, you know how you get to a page and before you can get to anything, you have that pop-up?
Yeah, it's twofold according to their, guidelines, immediately having it pop up. But if you immediately have it popped up, but yet the content underneath is not hidden, so let's just say you have a bar at the top, or it's a smaller square, you can still see most of the content, then you're going to be fine. It's those ones that like take over the entire page and immediately come up, like that's a no-no. And that happens sometimes on a mobile device, so you just got to look at it that way. So it's not that you can't do pop-ups, you just need to look at the design of it.
And, when you say it that way, that makes perfect sense, because I get annoyed if I get to a page and it's like asking me, okay, I'm trying to find a nice way to say this. It's like asking me to get it and we haven't had coffee.
Yeah. I think a good way to think about that, and Jennifer, you make really good points about just those other components. I guess in my mind, those have already kind of like been involved for a little while, but obviously it's all part of this page experience update. So thank you for calling that out. I think at the end of the day, I just think about, what's the experience that you're creating for your users, right? Are you creating a good one where people want to stay on your website, or are you creating experience with, unsecure websites with pop-ups that are crazy, interstitial ads that are just going all over, going wild right on your website, and you're just driving people off the site, Google's going to penalize you for that. And I think, yeah, at the heart of it, all of the algorithm updates, I think from this point forward are really, really focused on that is, are you creating a good experience for your users? And if you can say yes, then there you go.
Yeah, I think, Devin, you really nailed it there, because it's always been, once they got past the link, you ranked just on link style, that was 10 years ago. Once they got past that, it really became about, are you answering people's questions? Are you taking care of the users? Because if you don't, nothing
else matters.
Yeah. Because I think the way I say it is, it's great that you kept Google happy, but at the end of the day, Google isn't buying your product. People are.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
And generating the right content. I guess I should have said, it's not just about the paid, you can have a beautiful website, but if you have no content on there, obviously, you're not going to do well. So it's also, it goes without saying, having the right content on the website is also critical.
Really
Awesome. Devin, tell everybody again how they can find you.
Sure. So I am on LinkedIn. It's /Devin-Littlefield, just as you see on the screen. You can also find my company MarketVantage across the interwebs as well. And then my email is devin@marketvantage.com. Nice and easy to find.
Thanks for coming today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been fun. I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you. And if you guys are watching and you'd like to see some of the other Small Biz Chats, be sure to head over to the digital toolbox and click on the Small Biz Chat tab. We've got all the videos from all the past shows.
All right. Take care.
Bye now.
Thanks, everybody.